I would love to know, what did your hedge fund and Wall Street experience teach you about money that most families never see?
If I can be honest with you, the biggest lesson that I learned from running the hedge fund is that to a very big degree, money isn't real. There are ways for it to be basically created out of thin air.
Welcome to Real Money, Real Life, the podcast where we get real about money and the messy human stuff that comes with it. I'm Linda Grizely, financial educator and your Me Money guide to financial clarity. Each week, we dive into financial concepts and money strategies, but we always tie it back to real life, emotions, mindset, and how money actually shows up day to day. If you're ready for practical tools, mindset shifts, and honest conversations that meet you where you are, not where the world thinks you should be, you're in the right place. Because you deserve to feel confident with your money and good about how you use it. No judgment, no lectures, no lingo, and definitely no putting yourself last. Hello, and welcome to Real Money, Real Life, where we talk about money, mindset, and the messy in between. Because you deserve to feel confident with your money and good about how you spend it. Today's guest is Marcus Howard, hedge fund manager, entrepreneur, and founder of Tradecology Academy. After years managing capital and building precision strategies on Wall Street, Marcus realized the real revolution in wealth isn't happening in boardrooms, it's happening around dinner tables. That's why he created Tradecology, a groundbreaking financial literacy platform transforming how families, and especially teens, learn to build wealth, invest wisely, and create generational success. So whether you're a parent, an entrepreneur, or someone passionate about creating real change, get ready for a powerful conversation about rewriting the future of wealth, family, and freedom. Please welcome Marcus Howard.
Hello. Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, thanks so much. I would love to hear more about your story. I know we've talked and our missions align, right? Financial education, getting information to people who need it, who want to know more, who want to do better. So I would like to just take the opportunity for you to just tell us more about yourself and how you got here.
Sure. So my story kind of started when I was 13 years old. I'll save you the long version, but the short version of it is that my mom has been a social worker my entire life. She has always cared about the people that couldn't help themselves more than she's cared about herself, and it's been great. But one morning, my mom came home from work because she would work the overnight shift sometime, and she had the CD-ROM that had the stock market on it. And she was like, "Hey, this is something I think would be really interesting, that if you can figure this out, you might be able to," I don't remember the exact term, but like save our family, kind of, being able to become rich in the stock market. And so that was something that at that time, my mom was the person that I loved the most. I was like, absolutely, let me see if I can figure this out. Cut to me trying it for like 2.5 months, and it didn't work at all. Like it failed. I didn't know what I was doing. It was something that I wasn't really successful at, but at the same time, it was something that sat in the back of my mind of like, this is something that if I was going to be successful at it, I think that it would be able to make a greater life for myself and others in my family. So then I was in college. I ended up starting my first business, which was a personal finance business where I was helping college students to establish credit. I had wrote a book. I was like traveling the country, speaking at high schools and colleges about personal finance. I ran that business for about 10 or so years. And then it got to the point where basically I merged that business with another business and kind of bought myself out of it. So I had a little bit of money, but I had a lot more time on my hands. And that's when that idea that my mom gave me when I was 13 about, hey, looking at the stock market again. So I really gave a college try this time, like really taking the experiences that I had. And so I'd signed up for one of these companies. They had given me a $50,000 kind of play money account. So essentially the money wasn't real. I was simulating. And I told myself I would do this for a year. And if I could figure it out, then I would do it. If not, I would go and do something else. And I took that year and I took that $50,000 to about $1.6 million, somewhere in and around there. And then I was like, okay, it seems that this is working. So then I put $10,000 of my own money into it, turned that into 6 figures. And basically I've been kind of doing that ever since. So that was like 2018 going into 2019. Then how I ended up running a hedge fund was I told a friend of mine about this process and how I was able to make 6 figures. He was a part of a real estate group That real estate group was like, hey, we're in between deals. We're sitting on a pile of money. If we gave you this money, would you be able to invest it? And I, follow the mantra in life that even if you don't feel like you're qualified, say yes and figure it out later. So when absolutely I can go and try to figure it out, got a positive return for them. And then like most of the people that were in that private real estate group came to invest with me personally. So I went from just trading for myself to having about 30 or 40 clients. And I had to get registered. I had to get all the licenses. I had to get the insurance and do all those things to actually become an official fund, which I did do in 2019. And I've been running that ever since. How I got the Tradecology Academy, which is my passion project, was in doing all that. I was already kind of coaching and helping adult retail traders. So retail traders are folks that are trading like $1 million or less. I was helping those guys to figure out how they can optimize their strategy, how they can eliminate emotions from their trading, how they can maximize their psychology. And one of the clients there was like, hey, I think it would be beneficial if my kids learn this. And I resisted working with students for years because I was like, well, I'm already doing this for adults and I've already got a whole bunch of other stuff going on. But he did catch me in a moment where I was interested in being able to provide a contribution to something greater than myself, to be able to give back, legacy building. And so I said yes. And here we are now running Tradecology Academy. We launched our pilot in January of this year. Now we are in 4 countries, the United States, Canada, Indonesia, and Jamaica. Our curriculum is being taught this fall in most high schools in Jamaica, and we are running Jamaica's national stock market competition for high schoolers next year in 2026. So it's been a pretty exciting ride, and we're just getting started.
Wow, that's a lot of big stuff, Marcus. That's wonderful. So I would love to know, what did your hedge fund and Wall Street experience teach you about money that most families never see?
If I can be honest with you, the biggest lesson that I learned from running the hedge fund is that to a very big degree, money isn't real. There are ways for it to be basically created out of thin air. Or most people know about the stock market, which are companies that have valuations. And so there's, the market cap in terms of how much the entire stock market is worth. And since we're recording, I don't remember what that exact number is, but it's a few $100 trillion. But then there's this other part of the stock market, which are called derivatives. So these are things like if you think of futures, or you think of options, or you think of like when you watch the news and they say things like the S&P 500 is at whatever. So this other part of the stock market that we really don't talk about with derivatives, it's actually in the quadrillions of dollars. So they have way more money floating around in that area than exists on Earth. And so if you can just figure out a way to take from that big pool and bring it into the pool of your general life, you are essentially just like bringing in money that doesn't exist anywhere on paper, but you're turning it into actual factual cash that you can use for your life. And so my biggest kind of aha moment or takeaway from this entire thing was like, I spent so much of my life before trading dollars for hours. So I would be working, whether it was a 9-to-5 gig or even in my own company, to some degree, I'm just a glorified employee essentially. And I realized that you don't necessarily have to do that. There are other ways for you to be able to create wealth for yourself. That doesn't mean that you necessarily have to trade time. And that was my biggest takeaway for sure.
And that's super interesting. And that's a whole side of the financial world that I don't even know about, having worked as a financial advisor and a financial planner. I never got into that side of it. So I feel like we could have a whole nother episode just on that alone.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I want to get back to Tradecology. So is Tradecology based on some of the things that you learned about trading, or tell me exactly what it's teaching and how it's different from a typical financial literacy course?
So Tradecology Academy actually brings in a culmination of most of the things that I feel like have helped me to become who I am as an adult. And so it does incorporate some aspects of my hedge fund, which is like learning how to invest and how to do that properly. And I feel like that piece of it is important. But there are several other pillars that we cover in Tradecology Academy that I think are equally, if not more important. So let me start with just the most basic thing. So our curriculum is actually based on the national standards for financial literacy that have been set by Jumpstart Coalition. We've been using it for over a decade. And so there are things that by the time you graduate 8th grade, you're supposed to know about money. By the time you graduate high school, there are things that you're supposed to know about money. And so that framework has been around for quite a while. What our innovation is that we do it in a kind of fun and interesting way. And so in most instances, you'll find that they're teaching it in schools, and it's built in the same way a normal curriculum is, which is kids don't really care. It's not really engaging. It's not really interesting. And the most interesting kind of feedback that we get from our students, which is very real, like this new Gen Z generation, they are a different breed. Their feedback that they got from us was, well, that they gave to us was, yeah, we're interested in learning this stuff, but how am I going to learn it from my teacher? And they're broke. They don't make any money. So just think about that for a second. Like they're also looking not just at the message, but also the messenger. And so it's important for you to have somebody that has actually done it in real life that can actually teach you these sorts of elements. And so we go off of those personal finance. But then there's other things also that we include in it that I think are just as equally important. For example, we incorporate meditations. We incorporate relaxation exercises. We incorporate a goal achievement protocol that I've been using in my professional life for over a decade that's been verified by MIT to be 96, 97% effective at achieving any goal that you wanted to achieve in your life. So we include those protocols in our program to help students to become better at studying, to be able to achieve the things that they want to achieve in life, whether it's a summer job and those sorts of things. So we're really providing them an interesting set of life skills that you won't really find in most other places. I say that because I know the specific protocol that we teach in here. It was taught to me maybe 9 or 10 years ago, but the person that taught me that is now retired. He doesn't teach this information anymore. It's kind of hard to find it on the internet, if you can believe it. So we're teaching things that you normally don't have access to, but that doesn't mean that it doesn't work. It actually works very well.
Yeah, and that's all great. And I love that you've intertwined the mindset and the relaxation and all that stuff you talked about, because that's a lot of what I do in my stuff too, is bringing that like money and mind and life together.
Yeah.
But the thing I want to ask you about is I saw that you have it like it's gamification. So there's games involved and it keeps the kids engaged. So tell us more about that, because otherwise we're just talking about some financial literacy course that parents are going to think, oh, it's just another thing and my kid's never going to do that. But tell me about that part, because I think that that's a key difference in what you're offering here.
Absolutely. And I appreciate you asking me that for sure, because gamification is a big piece of what we do with this. Because the number one question that we get from students when they're going through curriculum, whether it's financial literacy or anything else, is how does this apply to me in my life every day? Like, how can I use this in my current life today to be able to get ahead? And so there's a couple of ways that you do that. One is to increase engagement so that they can actually want to do the assignments, want to utilize the information. So the way that we do that are things like leaderboards. There are games inside of there that you can do. We have a partner with this. It's an organization called H5P. So they are able to do education in a fun and more interactive way. So instead of it just being, open the book to page whatever, you've got like crossword puzzles, you've got games, you've got interactive videos that stop in certain places to test your knowledge. There are so many different ways to entertain the right side of the brain that really enjoys fun, as opposed to the left side of the brain, which is typically looking for words and things all the time. So we intertwine those gamification aspects and then have rewards in it. The other big thing that we do is at the end of each one of our years, we have a stock market competition. So all of the students come together and they compete, and there are cash prizes at the end for the winners. So it's not just that you're doing this for fun, but there's an actual cash prize or there's an award that's associated with it at the end. And the story I'll tell you is that when we launched our pilot program in January, we had one of our students that was actually based in Indonesia. And he was a kid who had a chip on his shoulder. He was like, listen, I'm going to learn everything I need to learn because I want to be successful at this. I'm going to win your stock market competition. We were like, we wish you the best of luck, man, if you think you can do it. And he actually did it. Like, he applied the information from our course. He actually won the stock market competition. He took the cash prize, gave half of it to his family, which allowed his family to be able to survive for I don't know how long, for like several months. And then he took the other half, they created a custodian account, and he's actually trading it and has made multiple times the prize money already with sort of the things that we've been implementing. So it was a good use case or a good confirmation. And not only was our program interactive and fun, but it also worked. Like, you can actually use it to do what we needed you to do, which is to invest properly in real life.
Wow, that's fantastic. At what age would you say this starts at? What age would kids start using this?
Sure. So the minimum age that we have in our program are 7th graders, so about 13 or so years old. But I would say that you would really find your sweet spot in around 15 or 16 years old. It's that kind of sophomore, junior year of high school, and then kind of heading into college.
So if there's someone who maybe wasn't interested in this stuff when they were in junior high or high school or middle school, and then in college they decide then they're interested, would it be something that they could still do then?
Yes. So we do have our adult accelerator. It's not the full program. So our full program is multi-year, or you can just do it for 1 year at a time. But our adult program, or the one that we use for college students as well, it's 12 weeks long, where we give you a crash course on the things that you need to be prepared for adulthood. So it's all of those things like budgeting, taxes, what are the different sorts of retirement plans that you should have? What are the fundamentals of investing? What are the typical types of investing that you would do at the current age where you are? Because how you invest between 18 to 25 is going to be completely different from how you would invest if you were 45 and older. And so, again, we give you that information for the current age that you're in. So, absolutely, if you were someone that was older, so you were in college or just starting your adult life, there is a solution that we have at Tradecology for that as well. Because what we found, and the reason why we even created it in the first place, was when we were talking to parents about the program and they wanted their students to be in the program. They were like, this is amazing. But what about the adults? Like, do you have something for us too? Because what we found is that one of the main reasons why families are so interested in a program like this is because a lot of times they didn't learn it themselves. And I'm sure for you as a financial planner, you've kind of seen the same thing. It's that no one taught us how to do this the proper way. They just kind of thrusted us into adulthood. They thrusted us into life and told us to just figure it out. And so parents have made many mistakes along the way that they don't necessarily want to pass on to their children. So I feel like a big reason why money in a lot of instances is a taboo subject is not even so much that it's like it's not kosher to talk about money, because I mean, we have to talk about money. It's the way that our economy is, the way the world runs. But it's more, there's a little bit of shame that comes with knowing that that you've made mistakes in the past and that you don't want them to get repeated with the next generation. And so you hope that they kind of figure it out in a different way. And so that's just been an interesting thing to look at with our work, because it's not just that we are teaching students how to invest properly, but a lot of times, man, we're healing families with just the work that we're doing to help them to get more comfortable to even talk about money or to fix some of these issues that they normally wouldn't have talked about anyway.
Right. And that's always something that I talk about is, hey, we need to start talking about money because money is with us every moment of our lives. Even when we're sleeping, we're spending money, heating our homes, cooling our homes, powering, whatever. It's just such a big part of our life. It's weird that we've created this taboo around the topic. I love that you're bringing that out also. So I know you talked about the idea of talking about money being a barrier, but what other mental barriers do you see in young adults or teenagers when it comes to money, when you're talking to students or they come in, and what are the things that they're telling themselves that are keeping them from succeeding?
That's a really good question. So what I've seen from talking to students and even in the research that we've done in just the entire ecosystem is that there's just a tremendous amount of uncertainty in terms of what they're actually supposed to do, how they're actually supposed to make money, how they're actually supposed to survive in a world where artificial intelligence is now taking over most of the entry level jobs that they would have once they get out of high school or college. So they're being thrusted into a world where the opportunities that would have been afforded to whether it was our generation, our parents' generation, that those opportunities really aren't there anymore. And so for them, what they're looking for more than if you go through all the levels of why and all the levels of whatever, they're just looking for certainty and security, just like anybody else would be. It's just that they don't know where to find the answer because their parents are usually struggling with money issues, or they just don't have a proper way to be able to find these answers. And so they look to the places that people would normally look to find the answers, which is their peer group. So if you're not going to find it in your local high school, you're going to turn to things like Instagram or TikTok or YouTube. And we know that when you look at those folks, they're typically selling dreams. They're not selling a reality because, that's what social media is. It's the selling of a dream. It's the highlights and you never really see the lowlights. And so to some degree, and this is something important, I want to give these students credit for, is they understand that that's not real to some degree. Like they realize that, okay, they're selling some sort of fantasy, but I still don't know where to find the real information. So help me to find the real information so that I can do this properly. Because I don't even know what sort of job I'm supposed to have. What am I supposed to be trained for? What am I supposed to go to college for that's going to be that next industry that I'm supposed to be in? Everybody's saying it's artificial intelligence, but how can I compete against a thing that can get a perfect SAT score, perfect MCAT score, perfect LSAT score, perfect GRE score, can code, can creative write, can do all of these things. And I can barely do some of these things because you're not teaching me this in school. And so what they're really looking for is just kind of certainty and security and just figuring out how they're able to do that.
Yeah, I like that. I agree with that. So, as far as the parents go, what mindset shifts do they need to make? Because one of the things I think is if the parents didn't grow up with wealth and they start talking about their child taking some course called Tradecology, what their idea of trading might be something completely different. So I feel like there's some mindset shifts that maybe the parents need to make too when their kids are enrolling in your course. Have you experienced that or?
Yeah, one of the things that we wanted to make sure that we prioritized in the beginning was family engagement. So a student can't learn these sorts of things in a vacuum. They need to be reinforced by the environment at home. So that's why it was so important for us to have an adult program. That's why we have free tools and resources that we provide to parents. So I'll give you a couple of examples. The first example is that when your student's in the program every week, you get a personalized newsletter specifically for what's going on with your student. And in it, it includes what they're excelling in, what may necessarily need work and may need to be reinforced, not by you, but by us. We'll help them to be able to do it. But then more importantly, conversations that you can have around the dinner table that are healthy money conversations. So instead of it being, what did you learn today? Which, I mean, come on, how many times a kid's just going to give you those 2-word answers and then move on to something else, but to be able to ask intelligent questions. And we also prompt the students to do the same thing. So one of the first assignments that we give students is to have a conversation with their parents about how inflation is currently affecting what's going on in the family, the family's personal economy. And you can have a very candid conversation about why eggs are $19 or whatever they were before they started to come down, or how come every time you go to a restaurant, even though you want to take your family out for a restaurant, you're essentially spending a mortgage payment just to feed a family of 4 when you go out to eat. Like these sorts of things, a lot of times kids don't have the understanding of just how much more expensive things are getting. But then if they can have that conversation and they can see and they can look at the numbers, like if we were having this conversation just 10 years ago, that prices were cut in half for the most part. So now I'm essentially spending double. Like these sorts of things make a huge difference. So these are, again, family engagement, family healing conversations that you can have. The second portion of that, when it comes to the parents and being able to help them out, and I think this is probably one of the most pivotal things, is for us to have them get over their connotations and their shame that they have just around talking about money in the first place. I can't tell you how many times we've had conversations with students and when they're prompted or asked about the conversations with their parents, it's usually restricted around mom or dad, can I have? If I can't have, why can't I? And then it's because I said so. That's not healthy. You know what I mean? Like students know better than that. They're not trying to be defiant, but they just don't quite understand. And again, that blocker that comes up as a parent is usually just limiting belief that they haven't ultimately been able to deal with and heal from or be able to have those sorts of healthy conversations. So to be able to get them over that stigma, to be able to talk intelligently to their student about what's going on with the family financially, and then how they can collectively get themselves out of it. Because a lot of times just the parents don't have the strategy. But if we can help you with the strategy, and then you also have your student learning aspects of this as well, so that they can also be creative enough to present for the strategies for the family as well, it's a completely different experience altogether. And again, it's just because we typically aren't comfortable with having these sorts of conversations in the family that you never do. But once you do, you realize just how helpful it is.
Yeah, I can see that. So if there's moms listening or people who have young people in their lives, if they wanted to introduce their children to this financial learning, how would they do that without their kid just rolling their eyes? If it's parent or the aunt or uncle or somebody saying, hey, you should check this out, what would be the thing that would make the kid want to do it?
Yeah. So there are two different things that can happen. So I'll just talk about just in general how this would work. So if right now there's about 27 or 28 states that mandate some sort of financial literacy inside of the schools. So every high school, they have to teach at least a semester of financial literacy. And so if you're in one of those 27 or 28 states, there's a natural point in which you can begin to have these conversations with your student because they will be going through this information. So if you take that opportunity to not go, oh, this is just another class that they're taking, but use that as an opportunity to be able to have some of these conversations, then that's something that is really helpful. For us on our end, what we do is we are strategic about how we go about it, and we're proactive. So one of the things that we do first is we'll do something called a family wealth snapshot. So what this does is if you're a mother or father or a son or a daughter, you can take an assessment that basically gives you your own money personality profile. So are you spend first or are you save first? Are you more an investor or are you more of a free spirit? So it gives you this kind of axiom for you to understand how you are as an individual, which is helpful. But we see these sorts of things are everywhere. But our innovation is that we've coupled it with artificial intelligence. And what we allow you to do is your entire family to take it. And so then the artificial intelligence engine looks at your entire family as a whole and gives your entire family a snapshot of where you are. So are you more like your mama or are you more like your dad? Are you and your brother, are you guys better? Do you match more? Or do you not? So it allows you to be able to get an understanding of just kind of how you are. Think about if you remember the love language conversation, if you've ever taken that quiz of like, what's your personal love language? So think of it as like a love language for money. Now, back before I was, got married and I was in the online dating scene, I can't tell you how many times I rolled my eyes when people asked me what my love language was, but it helped because I knew what it was. It was acts of kindness. It was physical touch. So you were able to have those conversations to be able to relate to people in ways that you truly understood. So we do that. The other tool that we use that is pretty fun and proactive is we actually have our Millionaire for a Day challenge. And what this does is for a student who's not interested, a lot of times they believe that $1 million is what they need and they'll be set for life. But what we do is we allow you to take this assessment for you to see just how long $1 million will last you based on the lifestyle that you want to live. So what kind of home do you want to have? What kind of car do you want to have? How often do you want to go out to eat? What sort of vacations are you taking? And then based on that, it spits you out an answer of just how long $1 million will last for you. And spoiler alert, it does not last as long as you think it does. On average, people have $1 million for 9.5 years. That's how long it takes you to go through $1 million. And so the natural part of that is, of course, $1 million should be able to last you much longer than that. And so we'll show you the tools and the strategies in order to be able to do so. And we'll show you how you can take that $1 million and actually never even have to spend the principal. Like you can hold on to the $1 million for the rest of your life and then use that as a vehicle to be able to have more money come into your life. The same way we alluded that money is made up out of thin air in terms of the work that I've done in my hedge fund. So show you some of those strategies so that you can keep that money for a long time. But you wouldn't know that unless you've taken a quiz that's shown you that, oh man, so you mean I'm not set for life if I have $1 million? So it's these sorts of things that kind of get students interested and engaged in having these sorts of conversations. And then we couple that when you actually get into the program, you find that it's interesting, it's fun, there's time travel built into it, there are TikTok style videos. Like there's a lot of just different things that want to keep you hooked and engaged in the program.
I love it. I love it. It sounds like a great program. Now, I also want to ask you before we start closing off is you also have a book. Tell me more about your book, Preparing to Manage Millions. That's the name of it, right? Yeah. Tell us more about that.
Nice. Thank you, Linda. You have done your research and I appreciate that. I did. So that book actually came from when I first started my personal finance business when I was in college. And it's amazing to think that I've been out of college for, I don't want to date myself, but it's been maybe about 15 or so years that I've been out of college. And that book is still being sold every single day. People still email me and tell me just how much that book has affected their lives in multiple countries. But ideally, what ended up happening was when I was in college, my identity had gotten stolen. And in the process of me figuring out how to fix my own personal credit, I found out that there was a way that you can basically, if somebody didn't have a credit profile already, how you can optimize their credit profile to get them a 700 plus credit score in like 6 months or so. So basically your first semester of college. And so I was like, well, I have a captive audience at my university of students that basically don't have credit scores. So could I teach this to them in a way and be able to kind of work off the debt that had accumulated from my identity being stolen? Because the thing about it was, like, because I knew who the person was, I was stuck with the decision of like, either I press charges and that person gets indicted and they go to jail, or the debt becomes mine. And I chose not to, essentially have that person be sent to jail. But then I had, you know, $40,000 in unsecured credit card debt at 19 years old that I had to take care of on my own. So the book came from that process of being able to figure out how to fix my own stuff, but then how to help. So in that book, Preparing to Manage Millions, what I show you is a lot of the budgeting and personal finance principles that we teach inside of Tradecology now are there just inside of book form. And it's, again, in an approachable way of like, how can you use this today? And then the second half of the book is all related to how the credit system works, how you can optimize and update your credit, and how you can do the things that we had done inside of that company for 10 years to be able to get a 700 plus credit score. So you could have done it on your own, but we know that most people don't think that. So we developed the software as a service business to basically do it for you. And parents were happy to have their kids sign up and then to give them the book and our education component so that they didn't mess up what we built for them in the first place.
Wow. All fantastic things that you're doing, Marcus. All right. So 13-year-old Marcus, your mom says to you, hey, figure this out. And you don't. But what would you tell 13-year-old Marcus now about money and mindset?
If I had the ability, and this is gonna sound like a cop-out answer, but it's not. What I would do instead of like telling him that everything is gonna be okay is to figure out how to give him a glimpse to be able to do a 360 view of where my life is right now. Because I don't think that he would have imagined what we would have been able to accomplish at 13 years old. I know he would have thought that this was possible, but 13-year-old me would have dared to dream, but to know that it would have actually have become a reality with like where I live. Like when I was 9 years old, I felt like that I wanted to live in an industrial loft in downtown Chicago. I live in an industrial loft in downtown Chicago. I had an idea of the kind of person who I wanted to be my wife. That is exactly who is my wife right now. I thought when I was a younger kid that I would have a business in which CEOs worked for me. I am a professional investor, and that's essentially what I do. But then I also knew that my final form was ultimately going to be that I was going to teach the next generation of people how to do this for themselves. Like I always thought that at some point I was going to develop a school, and I'm 39 years old, and like I have the school right now. So I would just give him that moment to be like, relax. Like we are actually going to do what you think we are going to do. So just enjoy the ride. And I think that would be very healing for him, because just thinking through my life, I stressed a lot more than I needed to because I was just such a high achiever and I want to accomplish so many things. So maybe that was helpful. It got me to where it is that I am now. But if I can give him anything, it would just to be able to just let him see through my eyes for 60 seconds to realize that dreams really do come true.
Wow, I love that. Love that for you. All right. So for the people listening who want to have their kids be more financially confident, where do they start? What's the first thing they should do?
Okay, I'm just being honest. I'm trying to figure out if that's a plug for Tradecology or if I should like give them some things that are other than that aspect.
Give the plug for Tradecology and then also give them one tip maybe.
Sure. So here's what I would say. So outside of just going to Tradecology in general, which of course I'm biased and I think that it is a great program for families, it would be that you can also go. So right now we're doing a back to school giveaway where if you go to giveaway.tradecology.com, we're giving away an iPad with a pencil. We're giving away a $250 gift card for school supplies. And then we've got a number of partners that have come on to help us, like with the student debit card, healthy groceries. Like it's like $1,200-$1,300 worth of stuff that we're giving away as a grand prize. So whether or not you ever go and sign up to Tradecology, you can always go to that to get an opportunity to be able to kind of win that back to school giveaway. So that would be the thing that I would plug more than necessarily say in the school. Now, if I had to give a student a genuine idea in terms of where they would want to get started, you're asking for students, parents, families, like what are we thinking here? Because the best advice that I can give right now, and it's tough because it's in the crypto space. So I want to just give every sort of caveat that I can. But like with the transformation that we're seeing right now in the space of not just cryptocurrencies, but like what's underneath that, the blockchain, the smart contract, the residual ledgers, this technology, we don't talk about it as much anymore because artificial intelligence has kind of taken over the entire ecosystem. But there are so many industries that are currently being disrupted dramatically right now by blockchain technology and AI together that are creating opportunities for families to genuinely create generational wealth in industries that they understand. So I'm not saying that you need to go out and like research something that you don't know. But what I'm saying is in the industry that you are currently in, I guarantee you there are 10 companies right now that are disrupting everything in that industry that have a cryptocurrency coin that's trading for pennies right now, if not less than that. And so the strategy that I have is not mine, but I actually got from somebody who has done this to the tune of a few $100 million, is what he would do is he would say, what is the easiest way for me to be able to get to 10,000 of these coins? So if they're trading at micro pennies at the few $100s, he's graduated to now say 100,000, but 10,000 is a good place to start, where you can spend $250, $500, maybe $1,000 at a time on companies or ecosystems that you've researched that are prime for disruption, that are trading at a few pennies. If any one of those investments gets to $1, essentially you've taken whatever let's say you put a budget of $10,000 in and you've gotten 9, 10, 12, 15 different coins at 10,000 a piece. Any one of those that gets to $1, you've automatically just made all of your money back, essentially. Then in most instances, what you find is if that thing gets to $1, then a lot of times it gets to 10. So not only do you make all of your money back, but you 10 extra money in a way to be able to do that. And again, I'm not making any suggestion on a particular company. I'm saying go to the industry that you currently know best and do some research, or have ChatGPT do deep research on some of these companies that are prime for disruption in that space and be able to do that. I have found so many people that have become millionaires from just doing that one simple thing. And it's not, I'm day trading these coins, what's the latest meme coin, but it's literally placing these $500 bets here or whatever, taking these coins, getting 10,000 of them, putting them on a flash drive, putting it into a safe deposit box or a safe in your home, letting it sit for 5 years, waking up 5 years later and you 10 extra money. What other ways could you do that? I think that will probably be some like an actionable thing that you can do right now that's simple enough, that isn't required to like you being an investment whiz. That's not what this is about.
Wow, you are a wealth of information, Marcus. So thanks for being on the show, but please tell people where they can find you. What's the easiest place for them to find you if they're looking for all these things you're talking about?
Sure. So you can just look me up personally on my social medias. It's all Marcus Howard HQ is where you can find me. Facebook, Twitter, or X, I guess it's called now, Instagram, all of those places. Or you can just look at some of the things that we have with Tradecology. So if you at Tradecology anywhere, we own the copyright to the name, so it's all going to be our stuff. So that'd be a great place for you to be able to get involved. We have so much free stuff on our YouTube channel. We give away so much free information all the time in terms of how you're ultimately able to get started. So wherever that fits for you, wherever it makes sense for you to get in, I would just say start in one of those two places.
Wonderful. Thanks so much, Marcus. It's been great having you on the show, and I look forward to learning more about it because I'm going to go check some of those things out myself.
It's a pleasure. Thank you so much, Linda.
Thanks so much for listening to Real Money, Real Life. Want to see what's blocking you from financial confidence or discover your money personality? Head to the resources page at lindagriz.com for our free quizzes. That's LINDAGRIZ.com/resources. If you're loving what you're learning, be sure to subscribe and leave a review. I'm your Me Money Guide to Financial Clarity, Linda Grizely, and I'll catch you next time as we talk more real money, real life, because you deserve to feel confident with your money and good about how you spend it. The content shared here is for educational and entertainment purposes only. It is not financial, tax, legal, or planning advice and does not constitute therapy or mental health counseling. Please consult an actively licensed and qualified professional for advice or help specific to your situation.